22 years ago, I looked away for 4 seconds, and my little sister drowned. I've written that sentence 100 times and deleted it 100 times. It always comes out like a confession, and I guess that's because it is one. But it's not the part that I need you to hear. The part I need you to hear is what I did last month, when I found a way that I could take it all back, and what it's doing to me right now, while I type this. Let me go in order. If I don't go in order, I won't get through it. Her name was Rose. She was 7. I was 16, and I was the one who was supposed to be watching her. It was my aunt's lake house, the last week of summer. My parents had driven into town for groceries, and they left me in charge, because that's what you do with the responsible kid. And I was the responsible kid. Ask anybody. Rose could swim. She had those little orange floaties on her arms, and she splashed around in the shallow part near the dock, where the water came up to her chest. I was on the dock with my phone. A girl I liked had texted me. That's the whole thing. A girl I liked had texted me, and I looked down to answer her. I wanted to tell you that I looked away for a long time, that I fell asleep, that something dramatic happened, but it didn't. I looked away for 4 seconds. I've timed 4 seconds in the dark, more nights than I could count. It's not very long, yet it's long enough. When I looked up, the orange floaties were on the surface of the water, and Rose was not in them. I'm not going to describe the rest. You can imagine it. And if you can't, then good. I'm glad for you. They said she probably wriggled out of the floaties herself. Kids do that. And she went under in a spot where the bottom drops away. In 4 seconds. The floaties just sat there on the water, bright and empty, turning a little in the wind. So that's the mistake. That's the thing I've carried for 22 years. I grew up anyway, the way you do. I got a job doing claims for an auto insurer, which is a fancy way of saying I look at pictures of dented cars all fucking day, and I decide what they're worth. I married a good woman named Priya. We have a son, Eli. He's 6. And every single day that he gets closer to 7, I feel something in my chest close up like a fist. I never told my wife the truth about Rose. I told her my sister died in an accident when we were kids, and it's true, but I let her assume that I wasn't there, which isn't true. Some lies you tell so many times, they just stop feeling like lies. That one never did. And I check on things. That's what the guilt turned into over the years. A checking. I check that the stove is off 4 times before bed. I check that the front door is locked, and then I check it again. When Eli was a baby, I'd stand over his crib at 3 in the morning with my hand flat on his back, counting his breaths. Priya thought it was sweet. It wasn't. It was a man who knows exactly how long 4 seconds is. The anniversary is in August. Every year around then, I go quiet and mean, and I can't sleep. And Priya's learned to give me room. This year, to give me something to do with my hands, I started going to estate sales on the weekends. I like them, honestly. Dead people's houses. All their stuff laid out on card tables in the garage. Nobody talks to you. Nobody asks how you're holding up. That's where I found it. It was on a folding table in a garage out on Route 9, wedged between a chipped gravy boat and a stack of those little condensed Reader's Digest books. A small cardboard box, sun-faded, with a carton willow tree on the front, and cheerful bubble letters that said, "One Wish Willow." Underneath, smaller, it said, "Tabby Cat Curiosities." There was an orange sticker on the corner, $6.99. I almost didn't pick it up. I want that on record. I almost walked right past it. But Rose used to collect junk exactly like this. Fortune teller fish, mood rings. The tackier, the better. It reminded me of her. So I picked it up, because for 1 second, it felt like she would have wanted it. And then I felt stupid for thinking that. And then, I bought it anyway. The woman running the sale didn't even look up. She had an earbud in, and she was talking to somebody else the whole time. I read the box in the car. Most of it was fake fun marketing copy. Make your most secret wish. But down one side, there was a column of small gray print that I only skimmed. I'll come back to that print. I wish I had read it in the car, but I didn't. And I want to be clear about something. I did not believe in it. I'm not a person who believes in these sort of things. I look at dented cars for a living. I bought a $7 piece of junk because it made me think of my dead sister, and I put it on my nightstand, and it sat there for 8 days. Then, it was the anniversary, and I was a few beers deep, and Priya and Eli were asleep, and I opened the box. Inside, there was a little wooden thing, pale, shaped like a wishbone. When I lifted the lid, a tune played, this tinny, warped little melody, like a birthday song coming out of a broken toy at the bottom of a pool. It made the hair on my arms stand up. And there was a card. Snap to wish, it said. And under that, choose your words with care. There are no returns. I held one end in each hand. I didn't plan what I said. Please, understand that. I've gone over it so many times. Every syllable. And if I had planned it, if I would have said it differently, if I would have been careful, maybe it could have been different. But I wasn't planning. I was just a man sitting on the edge of his bed at midnight, drunk and hollow, holding a fucking toy. And the thing I've wanted to say for 22 years just came out of me in a whisper. I said, I wish I'd never taken my eyes off her. And I snapped it. It didn't crack like wood. It cracked like a knuckle, wet and close. And the little birthday tune played one more note after it should have stopped. One low note. Wrong, almost. From somewhere that wasn't the box. I sat there. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. I felt like an idiot. I put the two halves on the nightstand and I lay down next to my wife and I stared at the ceiling for a while. And eventually, I drifted to sleep. That's the last time I remember sleeping. The first thing I noticed was small. The next morning, I was looking at the photo of Rose I keep in my wallet. I always look at it on the anniversary. And Priya called me for breakfast. Twice. And I didn't come. And when she walked in, she found me just standing there in the bedroom, holding the photo, just staring at it. She asked how long I'd been standing there. I genuinely didn't know. My coffee had gone cold on the dresser. My eyes were dry and aching, the way they get when you've been staring at a screen too long. It's just grief, I told myself. It's the anniversary. Of course I'm staring at her picture. But it just kept happening. That afternoon, I was at my desk, and I meant to open a claim, and instead, I realized I'd been looking at the corner of my monitor, not the screen, the plastic corner, for what the clock told me was 19 minutes. I hadn't blinked. When I finally did, it felt like dragging a shade down over sand. I told myself it was a tic. Stress. Priya said maybe I needed glasses. I made an appointment with an eye doctor, which felt like the responsible thing to do. I felt better for having a plan. That's the thing about me. I always feel better having a plan. For a couple of days, I managed. I want you to know that I tried being normal. I went to work. I made Eli his dinosaur waffles and let Priya pick the show. But my eyes were getting worse. And I don't mean my vision. My vision was fine. It was the not blinking. I catch myself locked on to things, a doorknob, a stain on the ceiling, the back of Eli's head at the dinner table, and I'd realized I hadn't blinked in minutes, and that I hadn't wanted to, that some part of me deep down didn't want to close my eyes at all. When I forced them shut, they sprang back open like they were on springs. At night, I'd lie in the dark with my eyes wide open, staring at nothing, listening to Priya breathe, begging myself to just sleep, and my eyes wouldn't close. The eye doctor said everything looked fine. He said my corneas were dry and irritated, prescribed drops, and told me to blink more. I laughed. He didn't get the joke. I didn't explain it. Blink more. Sure. 2 days after that, I scared a woman at the grocery store. I don't even know how long I'd been looking at her. I was in the cereal aisle, and I came back to myself, and she was standing at the far end of it with her cart, staring back at me. This frozen, frightened look on her face. She said, "Is there a problem?" And I didn't have to answer for her, because I hadn't chosen to look at her at all. My eyes just landed on her, and they stayed. I left my cart where it was, and I walked out to the car, and I sat there for a while. It was the 5th night when I saw her. I was lying on my back in bed. Priya was asleep. My eyes were open, because they were always open now, staring straight up at the dark ceiling. And in the dark, at the foot of the bed, right where the ceiling met the wall in my field of view, there was a small shape. I told myself it was a code on the door, a trick of the dark. I told myself that even when my heart started going, because I know what coats look like. And coats don't have wet hair. She was small. She was 7. Her hair hung down in dark ropes, dripping, and it was making a sound on the floor. Tick, tick, tick. A sound I've not been able to stop hearing since. She had on the swimsuit, the purple one with the daisy, and her arms were bare, no floaties, and her skin was the color that skin isn't supposed to be. I tried to look away, but that's when I understood. I could not look away. My eyes wouldn't leave her. I could move my head. I whipped my head to the side. I remember the muscles in my neck cramping, but my eyes rolled in their sockets to stay on her, dragging, straining, so that I was lying there with my head turned to the wall and my eyeballs cranked hard into the corner to keep her in view. And it hurt. It hurt like something tearing, and I couldn't stop it. I made a sound. Priya woke up. She turned on the light and asked what was wrong. And then Rose was gone, and my eyes snapped forward. I could look at my wife, at the lamp, at the normal room, and I told her it was just a nightmare, to go back to sleep. But it wasn't a nightmare. I hadn't been asleep. I haven't been asleep in a long time now. The next day I got the box out of the trash. Priya had thrown it away. I dug it out while she was at work, and I sat on the bathroom floor, and I finally read the gray, smallish print that I'd skimmed over in the car. It wasn't marketing copy. It was a list, rules, printed tiny in the flat tone of a manual for a blender. I'm going to give you the ones I remember, because I think you should know they were right there the whole time, and I didn't read them. 1. The one wish willow grants a single wish per person. Once snapped, the willow cannot be snapped again. 2. Wishes are granted exactly as spoken. Tabby Cat Curiosities is not responsible for the interpretation of your words. 3. And this is the one I read 4 times, sitting on that floor. A granted wish concludes only upon the death of the wisher. There are no returns. There is no cancellations. Please choose your words with care. At the bottom, there was a phone number, a customer service line. I called it. Of course I called it. What the fuck else was I gonna do? A man answered on the first ring. flat voice, bored, like I'd interrupted his lunch. Tabby cat curiosities. I told him everything. It came out of me in a rush. The wish, the exact words I'd said, rose, the not blinking, all of it. When I finished, there was a pause on the line. And it wasn't a surprised pause. It was the pause of a man finding the right page. The wish has been granted, he said. There's nothing on my end to do. You don't understand, I said. I didn't mean it the way it came out. I need to take it back. Please, just tell me how to take it back. There are no returns, he said. It's printed on the box. I begged him. I'm not proud of it. And he told me, in that same flat voice, the one thing that there was to tell me, like he was reading off a card he'd read 1,000 times. The wish concludes upon the death of the wisher. That's the only condition. There isn't another one. And then, I'll never forget this, he said. Would you like to see her? I said, what? He didn't answer. There was a click. The call ended. And when I lowered the phone, she was standing on the bathroom doorway, dripping, and I couldn't look away. I need to tell you about the drawing before I tell you the rest, because the drawing's the only thing that finally broke me. Eli came home from his grandmother's that weekend and made me a picture at the kitchen table. A family picture. Me, tall, with my square glasses. Priya with her long hair. Him, small, holding a dog. A dog that we don't have. But normal kid stuff. And behind me, standing just behind my shoulder, he'd drawn a small figure. Dark, scribbled hair. A purple triangle for a dress. 2 dots for eyes. Wide open. I asked who that was, as calmly as I could. He looked at me like it was some sort of stupid question. He said, "That's the wet girl. The one who's always looking at you." That's when he asked if we could have a snack. I gave him the snack. My hands were steady. I'm weirdly proud of that. I gave my son a snack with steady hands while that drawing sat on the table between us, the wet girl staring up out of it with her 2-dot eyes. And over by the pantry, at the edge of everything, the real one started too. I threw the drawing away after he went to bed. I couldn't look at it. That's a funny thing for me to say now, isn't it? That there used to be a thing I couldn't look at. Here's what my life is now. I need to describe it plainly, so you understand exactly what I did to myself. I do not blink. I physically can't. My eyelids won't close. Not for sleep. Not for dust. Not for anything. When I hold them shut with my fingers and let go, they slide back open on their own. Slow and even. Like something patient under the skin is doing it for me. The doctor called it exposure keratopathy. It's what happens to an eye that can never close. He wanted to tape them shut at night so the surface wouldn't dry out. I didn't bother telling him that the tape wouldn't hold it. I already knew that it wouldn't. My eyes will not close. That is the wish. That's what I asked for. And she's always there. She's in the corner of every room. Whatever I look at, she's at the edge of it. Small and wet and purple. And if I try to turn away, my eyes drag along to keep her, always. So I've learned to just look at her, because it hurts less. I have my sister back. She's in front of me every hour of the day. I never take my eyes off her. And every so often, she does the thing. She stands there, and then her head tips back, and the water starts to rise around her, even though there is no water. It goes up her chest, up her chin, and her eyes go wide. Hers don't blink either. We stare at each other while it happens, and I have to watch my little sister drown. Again and again. In my kitchen, in my son's bedroom, in my desk at fucking work. Which is why I don't have a job anymore. I watch it, unblinking, every detail I spent 22 years trying not to imagine. And I can't look away, because I asked not to be able to. I've tried everything a person tries. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes until I saw colors. I've sat in the closet with the door shut. It doesn't matter. The dark doesn't help, because she doesn't need the light. I see her fine in the dark. I see her best in the dark. The dark doesn't help, because she doesn't need the light. I see her fine in the dark. I see her best in the dark. For 22 years, the worst thing in my life was that I looked away. So I wished I never had. And the thing about that little toy, that $6 gimmick, is that it doesn't care about the person you were begging to be. It only hears the words. I said I'd never take my eyes off her. I never will. Priya took Eli to her mother's 4 days ago. She thinks I'm having a breakdown. She's right. Just not the way she thinks. She begged me to check myself in somewhere. I told her I would. I won't. There's no ward for this. I'm writing this as a warning. Somebody left that box on a card table for me to find for $6.99. And someday, somebody's going to leave mine. If you ever see it, the little willow, the cartoon tree, the cheerful bubble letters, put it down. You put it down and you walk away, and you don't say anything out loud. Not one word. Not even inside your own head. I don't really need my eyes to see anymore. That's the part I can't make anyone understand. It stopped being about my eyes days ago. The seeing just happens to me now, on its own, whether they work or not. I see the screen. I see my hands on the keys. And past the top of the monitor, I see Rose, close, patient, watching me write about her with her wide, wet eyes that never close either. I know how this ends. It's printed on the box, in gray, in the tone of a blender manual. The wish concludes upon the death of the wisher. That's the only condition. There isn't another one. I've read it enough times now that I hear it in his flat, bored voice. So I know it's coming. I've known for a few days now. There's a kind of peace in knowing, I guess. Even a peace like this one. I just want to say the thing I can't stop thinking, and then I'll go. I spent my whole life wishing that I could look away from what I did. For 4 seconds, for one merciful second. Just long enough to breathe. And now, I would give anything, to be able to look away from her. To close my eyes. Just once. Just for 4 seconds. That's all I ever needed. 4 seconds. I'm not going to get them until the very end. She's watching me finish this. She's always watching me. I can't look away. I never will again.